Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thousands of University of California workers from across the state walked off the job today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It marked the beginning of a 3-day strike. KPBS reporter Melissa May takes us to the UC San Diego Health Campus in La Jolla.
UC San Diego healthcare, research, and technical professionals march and chant outside the Jacobs Medical Center as part of a statewide strike. AFSCME and UPD labor union members are on the picket line for what they call unfair labor practices.
It's already dangerous. We're already at a point because of this whole unfair labor practice. We're already at a point where people are leaving. They're stressed out. There's a lot more work they have to do, and they're not getting fairly compensated or anything else involved with that.
If we don't stand up for the unfair labor practices, it's just going to continue.
Earlier this month, AFSCME, the union representing about 40,000 University of California workers, filed a complaint with the state alleging UC has, quote, engaged in a coordinated effort to silence and intimidate workers from speaking out about the growing affordability and staff vacancy crises. UC says they have not silenced workers and there is no staffing crisis. UPD member Ruben Barba is a UC San Diego microbiologist. He says UC has increased workloads for employees but has not increased staffing.
The main issue is that staffing crisis. UC says that we do not have that, but we experience it every day right there and on front lines and in our job.
A spokesperson from the UC Office of the President says they have continuously reached out to the unions in an attempt to settle these contracts. AFSCME member Christopher Kaiser says his pay isn't keeping up with the cost of living.
It's hard. I take care of my mom, who has small cell lung cancer that has relapsed and metastasized to the left side of her lung. This isn't my only job. I have to work other jobs to keep a roof over our head because 72% of my paycheck from the university goes to rent alone.
UPD member Samantha Walsh is a registered dietitian at the UC San Diego Eating Disorder Center.
We have issues of chronic turnover. We've had about a 54% turnover in the last 5 years at UC. So we do not have enough staff to see our patients in a timely fashion. And what that means is the wait times to get seen at our clinics can be really, really long, weeks, if not months.
UC says its data shows staffing is increasing and the number of people leaving is declining or flattening among members of both unions. UC San Diego Health says it has plans in place to minimize patient impact and maintain access to hospitals and clinics during the strike. And all UC San Diego Health facilities are expected to remain open and operational. AFSCME workers are striking through 1 p.m. Thursday, and UPD workers are striking through 1 p.m. Friday. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Chaos and confusion from Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has made its way to San Diego County. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne joins us now from the North County Bureau at Cal State San Marcos to explain it all. Tanya?
Confusion is right, Maya. We got news that a Social Security office in North County was a part of DOGE's real estate savings list. But confusion came when the office on the list said Carlsbad. Now, there is no Social Security office in Carlsbad, but there is one in Oceanside, right at the border with Carlsbad. I drove there personally to confirm whether or not the office was closed and can confirm that operations were up and running. Staff I spoke to in the Oceanside office said they had not heard anything about a possible closure closure or about being a part of DOGE's list. They also added that this is one of the busiest offices in the region, with appointments filled the rest of the week. The office is in Congressman Mike Levin's district. He spoke out on social media almost immediately, trying to get answers. We caught up with him over the phone. Here's what he found out.
But we do not have any understanding of why a Carlsbad, California Social Security office is listed for, I think it's like $118,000 a year lease. You know, what facility is that they're talking about? We looked to see if there were other Social Security offices in Carlsbad specifically. We could not find any. And so it's just more questions. And it tells me one of two things. Either it's really Keystone cops, like really incompetent, or there's news to come. And I don't know which it is.
Congressman Levin added that what the federal workforce on the ground knows can change in a moment's notice. We will stay on top of this and any other closures that could impact our region. Live from the KPBS North County Bureau, I'm Tanya Thorne.
And we appreciate that report, Tanya. Now, DOGE has fired tens of thousands of employees across the federal workforce, but 6 federal workers could be back on the job soon, at least temporarily. Laura Aguirre explains how a once little-known independent protection board could have a huge impact in the weeks ahead.
Overall, it's a travesty.
Attorney James Eisenman is the former general counsel of the U.S. Merit Systems Protection Board, or MSBP. He's been watching the recent widespread federal firings closely and agrees with the current board's 45-day reinstatement of around a half dozen fired workers.
There's no real consideration for the impact of these firings on the agencies, on the mission of the agencies, and on the individuals themselves.
Consideration aside, legal concerns abound.
To me, it's just an assault on the rule of law.
That's what the MSPB, working with the Office of Special Counsel, will investigate over the next month and a half, representing the workers as they bring their wrongful termination cases against the Trump administration through a network of over 60 administrative judges nationwide.
The administrative judge conducts a hearing, much like a trial, except there's no jury. That decision from the judge can be appealed to the 3 board members at headquarters of the MSPB.
The initial wave of cases could be a testing ground for what's to come.
It's obviously very stressful.
This FAA employee, afraid to be identified, is among many waiting to see where DOGE downsizing strikes next.
Managers, most of the times, are not even knowing their employees are being fired. They find out from the employees.
Eisenman says the, quote, slash and burn approach to agency cuts will hurt more than the employees and their families.
More importantly, it will harm the public at some point.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The San Diego Police Department released footage last week of an officer shooting and killing a teenager near the Santa Fe Depot downtown. KPBS investigative reporter Scott Rod says the incident is drawing scrutiny. And a warning, this story includes descriptions of violence.
Security camera video shows 3 teenagers standing near the train platform at the Santa Fe Depot. After a brief exchange, one of them pulled a gun and started shooting. The teenager being shot at took off running down a corridor. San Diego police officer Daniel Gold was nearby responding to an unrelated call. Body camera video shows he started running towards the transit station when he heard gunfire. Seconds later, Officer Gold and the fleeing teenager nearly collided coming around a corner. "Whoa," Officer Gold shouts, and immediately shot the teenager. Gold then identified himself. "Send in the police!" Although the teenager was not holding a gun, officers providing aid found a pistol under his clothes, according to footage released by SDPD. The teenager died from his injuries.
In my view, there are serious questions as to whether this shooting was legally justified.
Philip Stinson is a professor of criminal justice at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. He says the officer could not have known the teenager had a gun in his waistband since the exchange happened so fast.
Sometimes police officers make the wrong split-second decision, and it's going to be interesting to see how the investigation unfolds.
In a statement, San Diego Police Chief Scott Wall said, quote, "While it's never easy to watch this kind of footage, our department remains committed to transparency and ensuring a fair, thorough, and independent investigation. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department will investigate the shooting, and the District Attorney's Office will determine if the officer faces any criminal liability. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
Public health officials are investigating the first case of bird flu in a cat in San Diego County. A house cat in East County, which got sick and died last month, tested positive for H5N1. The indoor cat ate raw pet food that is suspected to be the source of the infection. Several other cases have been reported in cats throughout California. All are suspected to be the result of eating raw food or raw milk. County health officials recommend you avoid consuming raw dairy products or feeding them to your pets. The COVID pandemic threw schools into chaos as closures sent kids home to learn on computers. Test scores dropped, absences skyrocketed, and schools were left trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. In our Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego's Jacob McWhinney explains how it's still having an impact.
It's clear that COVID negatively impacted most schools in San Diego County. We now know that many local schools still haven't recovered. In fact, less than half have shown they're on the road to recovery. And to be clear, that doesn't mean those schools are performing as well or better than they were before the pandemic. It just means that school performance has been improving over the last 2 years. We have all this information from Voice of San Diego's Parents Guide to San Diego Schools. The guide is chock full of useful data, breakdowns, and stories, all meant to help parents more easily navigate the messy world of education. It's free to download at vosd.org/schoolsguide. This year we added the COVID recovery metric, so you can see not only whether a school's test scores were impacted by the pandemic, but whether they've shown signs of improvement in the years since the shutdown. Taken all together, the data shows that the shadow of the pandemic is long. Students, families, and the schools that serve them will likely be working for years to come to dig out of the learning loss hole. That's bad news because the halcyon days of school funding are over. Federal relief packages during COVID that injected billions in funding into schools across the country have ended. San Diego Unified, for example, is grappling with a more than $100 million deficit. And now it and other districts are facing the prospect of having to cut the very services they implemented to try to help kids recover. I'm Jacob McWhinney for Voice of San Diego, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/publicmatters. Muslim students in the San Diego Unified School District can take their school meals home during Ramadan. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas spoke to one student about how he's preparing for fasting during the school hours.
Rustam Shirzai is a freshman at Mira Mesa High School. This will be his first time fasting at an American school. He's thought about what he's going to tell his friends.
I'm gonna tell them, like, I'm not gonna be that active. Like, I'm not gonna have that energy, like, in the last hours of school. And maybe I'm not gonna spend that much time with them, too, because, like, it's gonna be a little bit hard because you have a hungry stomach.
During lunch, he'll go to his school's psychology classroom. It's where Muslim students go to pray. Shirzai thinks his PE teacher will be surprised he's not running.
I run a lot like, I'm always active, but maybe he's gonna be kind of shocked why am I not doing anything anymore.
Shirzai will still be able to eat school meals during Ramadan. A new waiver from the state allows districts to send breakfast and lunch home with students so they can eat them between sunset and dawn. Shirzai and his family came to the U.S. from Afghanistan 8 months ago. His dad, Mohammed Jawad Shirzai, says he appreciates that the district is thinking about kids like his.
When we respect our beliefs, it is something good that we can have a better life with each other.
San Diego Unified says it's one of just 5 districts in the county offering to-go meals for students observing Ramadan. All schools are now required by state law to provide accommodations in PE class for fasting students.
What this means is that, say, instead of running, which is what students reported is very difficult for them when they're fasting, say they're allowed to go play basketball inside, be in the gym, maybe write a paper.
Farita Arakat is the program manager of the Majd Al Arab Community Center of San Diego. She wants students to know they can ask for what they need during Ramadan, like places to pray and flexibility on assignment deadlines.
I think a lot of students grow up thinking that coming from an immigrant family, it's kind of this model minority myth of like, I have to kind of keep my head down and just be like the good immigrant and the good Muslim and kind of combat a lot of the rhetoric that maybe villainizes us. And really what I want for youth today is to not feel hindered by these narratives, but to actually feel like they can get what they need to succeed.
Ramadan is expected to begin Friday night. San Diego Unified's meal program runs through March 28th. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Here in California, we depend on winter precipitation for our water, but there's a wild card confounding our seasonal forecast for rain and snow. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge talked to a research meteorologist about atmospheric rivers.
There's a sculpture on a seaside plaza at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. It's a mix of science and art called the Atmospheric Rivers Globe.
Here's an atmospheric river that is a jet of low-level moisture that transports tropical moisture to higher latitudes.
Alexander Gershinoff at Scripps Oceanography says when those jets of skyborne water vapor arrive in California, our mountains push them upwards and squeeze rain and snow from them, often huge amounts. Research at Scripps shows atmospheric rivers can make our winter forecast based on La Nina and El Nino practically obsolete. Those forecasts are based on Pacific Ocean temperatures. El Nino usually means it'll be a wet winter, and La Nina means it'll be dry. But Gershinoff says in the 21st century, strong atmospheric rivers have turned many La Nina predictions upside down.
The really wet years have tended to be La Nina years, and that was 2011, 2017, which was one of the two wettest years on record in Southern California.
And then, of course, there was 2023, another La Nina winter that nonetheless brought record snowfall to the Sierra Nevada.
There are certain storms that don't care about El Nino or La Nina, and the atmospheric rivers are those storms.
And we can see that in a period of more than 17 years.
Scripps researcher Rosa Luna Nino points out a graph that shows the wide variation from year to year of precipitation in Southern California. Predicting wet and dry winters is vital to California's water management, allowing reservoir operators to know when to release water or when to save it for the dry summer ahead. National Weather Service meteorologist Alex Tardy says we can see atmospheric rivers coming maybe 10 days out, but predicting seasonal precipitation from them is, for now, just not possible. We just don't know what path those atmospheric rivers will take and where they will make landfall.
Your prediction might have been really good. You might have said, hey, we're going to have a very active atmospheric river winter, and there's going to be 25 atmospheric rivers. But if they all miss Southern California, or if you only get one or two of them, that's going to make a major difference. That's going to determine the outcome of your season, whether you're wet or dry or normal.
When atmospheric rivers are strong, they can make up 60% of California's annual precipitation. Gershinoff says predicting when and where they will arrive in our state is something we need to get better at. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. As we head into the weekend, I'm tracking some very warm weather tomorrow, but then heads up, we will see some rain chances here as we head into your Saturday and Sunday. But overnight lows will be partly cloudy with temperatures in the 50s, overnight conditions, I should say, down to 44 tonight for Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. But for the most part, it's going to be a pretty mild start here for your early Thursday morning. Future track radar is showing that as we head into tomorrow morning, a mostly clear start. There will be some clouds there across the coast, but overall, high pressure is going to dominate the forecast. So by midday tomorrow, this area of high pressure is going to be just churning here across pretty much the Phoenix and Tucson areas. And because of that, we're going to see lots of sunshine here in the forecast. But as we head into late Thursday, early Friday, some of that coastal cloud coverage will try to work its way onshore. And then behind that, get ready for the rain chances moving in for the weekend. For Thursday, this is what we're tracking. High pressure dominating the forecast. It's going to stay dry and warm. Highs will be a mix of 70s and 80s here across the majority of the region. So pretty nice weather here for us. And on Friday, once again, comfortable, nice weather here continuing. But after that, that's when the rainfall starts to move in. Here's an updated look at your exclusive 5-day outlook forecast here. And you can see Thursday, look at that, 77 degrees. Very warm here for your Thursday afternoon. Temperatures will take a little bit of a tumble there from Thursday to Friday, about a 10-degree temperature drop there for afternoon highs. A little bit more cloud coverage in the forecast here as we head into Friday and Saturday. But then as we head throughout Saturday and Sunday, watching out for some of those rain chances really peaking there early next week. For the inland forecast, same thing. We'll have 80s on Thursday, dropping into the 60s on Friday. We'll see temperatures moderating here for the weekend before that rainfall moves in on Monday. And then for the desert or the mountain forecast, we'll see 50s on Thursday, temperatures dropping, a little bit more cloud coverage throughout the weekend, and then that rain chance on Monday. And then across the desert, hey, lots of sunshine. Temperatures will be in the 80s. We'll see 70s here as we head into next week with calm conditions.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump promises more cuts to the federal workforce in his first cabinet meeting. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
1 year ago, Coop's West Texas Barbecue in Lemon Grove almost closed its doors, but owner Broderick Cooper came up with a new business plan to survive post-COVID. KPBS arts and culture reporter Beth Accomando shows us what makes Coop's unique.
This is a Texas stop sign.
Anytime there's smoke coming out of a metal container, you assume that it's barbecue, and you can't help but look and want to come check it out or come see what you got, what the person's cooking.
And what Broderick Cooper is cooking is mouth-watering Texas-style barbecue.
We call it Big Mouth, because when you open it up, it looks like it's saying, "Feed me."
It's comfort food for carnivores.
That's how we know it's done, bending over like that.
Just over 14 years ago, Cooper, or Coop as people call him, discovered these brick oven pits in Lemon Grove.
When I saw these pits, I was just like, it's on. So it was like the chimes of heaven just said, "Whoo."
There's a lot of history in those pits.
These pits have got to be almost 40 years old. The person that built them was from the Fargo's family, which was a barbecue spot that was in the 80s. Fires down low. Your first rack is about right here, so you got about a good 3 feet of smoke and heat coming up into the meat. So we do a process of grilling and smoking at the same time, and I think it gives our meat a little bit more flavor. You can't make these pits anymore. They can't be made. These are grandfathered in. They're very unique. Not very many of them in the United States. Give me a brick oven pit any day, and I'll go up against anybody.
And he'd probably win based on what I've tasted.
How is it?
It's delicious. Coop cooks in these pits almost every day, serving up what he calls legendary barbecue at Coop's West Texas Barbecue in Lemon Grove. It's barbecue done the way his father taught him in Texas.
Texas barbecue in general is a dry rub. We season our meat, smoke it, and we serve it alongside of a good barbecue sauce. So we never really put the barbecue sauce on the meat.
That's so you can taste the meat and judge Coop's skill as a pit master. Coop never planned to run a restaurant until he saw these pits in 2010. One of his first customers encouraged him to list his business on Yelp.
I didn't even know what Yelp was, and they loved it. They gave me 5-star review before I knew it. This place was full of white folks. It was.
But as with many businesses, Coop's faced challenges during COVID.
I guess like people who went through the Great Depression, they'll never forget it. COVID, I believe, for our generation, that's one of those things that will never be forgotten. For us, we stayed open. We couldn't afford to close. We felt like superheroes, like we were wearing capes when we were here every day, and people were coming in, getting the food.
The toughest part, though, was post-COVID.
Coop's has always been considered a barbecue destination. People coming from all over Southern California, North County.
So not only were costs up, but business was down because higher gas prices led people to seek barbecue closer to home.
23 was the worst year ever. I mean, it was like a ghost town around here. Nobody was moving around. Pretty much getting ready to close our doors in March of 24.
But when he posted that he'd be closing, people suddenly lined up down the block.
And so I'm bending over, got tears coming out my eyes. When I come up, I was like, where you guys been? And everybody starts laughing. And I was like, nah, man, as funny as it sounds, I said, I'm serious. I said, man, we've been cooking all this wonderful food and nobody's been coming to eat it.
That support inspired Coop to experiment with a new business plan.
I'm going to do it like a Texas barbecue joint. I'm going to open up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, serving you guys fresh barbecue, 10 to 3, or when we sell out, hopefully we sell out every weekend.
And while the lines haven't stretched down the block again, Coop has been able to keep himself and his hard-working 3-person staff employed.
We're not out of the red yet, but we're still open, and I thank God for that. As long as he gives me the energy, the desire, the passion that I have for doing this, I'm gonna keep doing it.
All right, order for Lenny.
Coop always has classics like brisket and ribs on the menu, but he also experiments with creations like smoked chicken enchilada pie or barbecue spaghetti.
This is a mixture of barbecue sauce and spaghetti sauce. Once this is hot enough, we'll throw cheese in here and just let it melt on top. And right before we throw it on the noodles, we'll mix the cheese all up and mix the sausage, and voila, barbecue spaghetti.
Hope that whets your appetite. And apologies that you can't taste or smell what's coming out of those brick pits. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Wow, that does look good. It must smell even better. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. President Trump's renewed interest in acquiring Greenland has put the territory in the spotlight. On NPR's Morning Edition, Greenlanders sound off on the island's ties with both the U.S. and with Denmark. And KPBS Midday Edition is wrapping up Black History Month with a segment celebrating Black women in film. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. I hope you have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.